chills when I ride it. Going months without a full on riding. I got to know me well, it's exciting. I gotta settle down, yet I don't like it. I get cold chills when I ride it. Going months without a full on riding. I got to know me well, it's exciting. I gotta settle.
All right, brother. Can you introduce yourself for the viewers? Let people know a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your musical background, and what inspires you as an artist.
All right, for sure. Yeah, I go by Ayinar. I'm originally from Veneta.
Mm-hmm.
I've moved around quite a bit throughout, since high school. I've lived in Joplin, Miami, all the way, just basically up and down, and then landed here in Tulsa here. And that's what I've been doing. And I'm a rapper, so that's what I, do. I rap. I like to rap about all sorts of touchy subjects too that have affected me throughout just a period of years, and then roughly to, how can I put this, work through a lot of mental issues I had, which is also what this, track is about.
How did you get started with music, and what has kept you creating over the decade?
So what actually got me started was, so back in high school, I originally, I used to not like rap back in high school. I was strictly like screamo and, like metal and rock music because it's how I grew up, my parents and whatnot. However, one time, because I had to stay and do some, earn extra credits to finish graduating high school, they let me walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to go back and earn. So I was listening to music at the same time, and I also had gotten into poetry. Well, on the side, in between assignments, I was listening to some music and ended up coming up with my own first rap back then and printed it off a long time ago. I've lost it since, but that's where my very first original attempt at, writing my own rap track. And from there, it just stuck with me, no matter what I did, because that helped me get through when I was, in some dark, deep times mentally, and then just anger, and then of course relationships and whatnot. It was a good venting, a good outlet, or as most say, a good therapy for me. And that's what kept me going. And then it just transitioned more and more and more, and then became more of lyricism, and then all sorts of and now I'm to the point to where I don't follow a single niche. I do all sorts of different niches in my own way to express my own creativity and my own imagination, and bringing out the just keep that inner kid alive in creating my work. So that's what I do.
Now, you got a song called Cold Chill. Can you tell me what inspired you to write Cold Chill?
So what inspired Cold Chill was, so during college, I went to Full Sail University online, and one of the classes touched on cultural marketing. Now, where I grew up, I didn't even know this really, nothing about it. And then it kind of opened up my eyes to what overall companies do, how they target a wide audience to match basically each different culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like Coca-Cola, they did their own thing. McDonald's has done their own thing. McDonald's has their own little menu over in, I believe, Japan, that's completely different than what we have over here.
Right.
I was like, okay, that's very interesting. And then it clicked, because once you have a certain culture, then you need a target audience. And this is where music came in, because I was like, okay, now I can see that, these artists can target a certain culture and talk about different things, and then incorporate it into the mental health, as well as just any other thing, not only mental health, but everyday actions that people do, diving into people's emotions and playing off of people's emotions. It goes super deep. And then that got me thinking a whole bunch more. And that's probably one thing that I had to learn how to control, was overthinking. But it helped me to open my eyes a little bit as to once I found out in between, so you find your target audience, and then it leads into when making investments, because artists, they have all sorts of different investments, even movie people, or actors and actresses, and with that, you can spin the narrative towards whatever targeted audience you want within a certain culture, that you know that the people are going to act a certain way depending on what you say, what you do, how you do this and do that. And so it's just a cycle of money, roughly. And that's why I think, like, the target audience and cultural marketing is just one giant evil cesspool in one,
Yeah.
like when done wrong. Now you can do it the right way. Like there's plenty of artists who, like, don't go down the dark way, is what I would call it. So
The track, I mean, like, when you listen to culture, the track seems to touch on how music can influence mental habits.
yeah.
Can you explain the message behind it?
So as I was mentioning with like a target audience. So for example, you got the people, you got people who drink, people who, like pop pills and do all that. And like because I used to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink, I don't pop pills anymore. And what I remember while being in a deep addictive state was I was always listening to music, and depending on what song I was listening to would put me further. Now, this isn't everybody. I know a lot of people are strong-minded, okay? And they can listen to songs like I'm strong-minded. I can listen to certain songs, however, I don't listen to a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But they can spin, like I said, they could spin the narrative of a song. And if they have investments into, like, say, pharmaceuticals, and they're constantly rapping or singing about, like, popping the pills and whatnot, and then like they throw in the whole emotional state where it's like just sadness and anger, and incorporate it all into one. While the listener is in their addictive state, they're more susceptible to what they hear. And then, like, even the conscious mind, subconscious mind, and unconscious mind is all going to absorb every single bit of it. And so when people are sitting there trying to go to bed, and they're sitting there, like I said, in an addictive state of mind, they're constantly going to be thinking about these things that they're taking, and then they're going to go and listen to the song or whatever songs they're attached to
Mm-hmm.
that incorporates all of it, and it creates a vicious cycle. That's the best way I can put it. And so it'll keep people coming back more and more to listening to these songs. And that's one thing I explain also in Cold Chill, is like giving up all their freedom, their mental freedom, because then they're not able to fully think for themselves when they're in such a deep addictive state and then addicted to music. Because we all have our favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our favorite artists that we check out and stuff. And like I said, just one big vicious cycle.
Yeah, you got me thinking about that movie, They Clone Tyrone. They show a scene in the movie where they show you how they control people's emotions based off the music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So pretty much everything you were just saying, like when people are in that addicted state, and that frequency.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they can find the frequency, and then so one other thing is like that I believe plays into it is, so like when you're in that addictive state and listening to this music, and then you don't have the things you're addicted to, it's going to put you in a sad, depressive state, which can lead to you going over and listening to, say, your favorite sad song, and then from there, depending on how well your mind is either weak. Not saying people are fully weak-minded, that's I'm not saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're craving, you're willing. And when you're constantly willing and then like in a sad state and you're listening to these sad songs about people offing themselves or, stuff like that, it's gonna put that thought in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something, for a long time I also battled with. So like it's just, just need to be more mindful of what we listen to when in those states of mind.
That made me think about my next question. Like, was there a personal experience or cultural observation that led you to explore that theme?
Yeah. So personally, I have had a few attempts in my life that I had to work through. you know, like, and I say attempts that like it. I was just in a dark spot while deep in addiction, and wasn't able to get what I was addicted to,
Hmm.
and would constantly, like I said, listen to these songs, and it just like made me feel like giving up.
Yeah.
And then once I like kind of worked through it a little bit, you know, and thankfully thankfully, like I said, how writing became my outlet.
Hmm.
Thankfully, I had writing. I wrote some of the most negative, hateful stuff, but it helped get me through it. However, some people do not, or like some people just don't do that. You know, they just sit in it and they wallow in it and they let it eat at them. And it can lead towards a lot of just people, really good people, taking their own life. And it's sad. And like, I don't want that. And that's why, you know, it's what led to me also like changing how I write from such a negative perspective and hateful perspective to being positive and bringing out the creativity again, regardless of what the subject matter is. You know, like it's harmless subject matter,
Right.
and just I want people to, you know, like gotta love ourselves, man.
Nah, real talk though. Spread more love and less hate.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Because there's way too much in this world, way too much, especially now.
Hmm. Now you mentioned that the cultural market uses music to affect mental freedom. Can you
Hmm.
expand on what that looks like in the practice?
So with it, the best way I can put that. So a while back, or a long time ago, I worked at a Salvation Army,
Hmm.
and a lot of the kids that were in there, you know, African American, and like there was only maybe like two white kids up in there, and every day I worked there, I could hear what music they're listening, and these are kids.
Hmm.
And I remember a while back he was saying, you know, we got to do better by our kids, and I completely agree. And they're listening to a lot of the most vulgar rap and hip hop out there now, and you know, and like it's at an early age, and they're going to sit there and think it's okay over time, and then by the time they're adults, how much further will that evolve into?
Hmm.
You know, it's going to evolve and expand, and then not to mention, you know, life choices in between that can lead to also, you know, like how the last question, like if they're going through something and then, you know, like not able to, like if they want to be their idols so bad and listen to the, you know, be these people that they're listening to so bad, yet like not able to get the resources like these people have, it's affecting cultures in different ways. And that's when the targeting audience also plays in, because like, you know, an artist can be like, okay, well, have select artists rap about this to, you know, and then send, you know, like push the promotions towards these group of people,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then, you know, vice versa, just regardless of race. And it's explosive in the most toxic way.
You made me think of Stan when you were just talking as far as like the fan wanting to be like their, you know what I'm saying, their favorite artist. Remember the Eminem song Stan?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
that, yeah. Like me, I don't even listen to, like I grew up on Eminem and all, you know, all of these other artists.
Mhm.
I don't listen to them anymore though. All I listen to is either lo-fi hip hop, anime lo-fi hip hop, or my own tracks. Occasionally I'll, you know, listen to other artists who do pop up on my Spotify radio, but it's been a while since I've done that, because even then I still have to filter through a lot of like just negative stuff. And I was like, I don't want that in my algorithm, you know?
Mhm. So how do you define mental freedom, especially in today's media saturated environment?
Mental freedom, you would have to definitely, you'd have to be very open to letting go of your favorite artist for a while until you can develop your own sense of thoughts again. Because if you're sitting there constantly thinking and talking like your favorite artist, it's going to put you in a mental trap, a mental cage. And
Mhm.
then for me, mental freedom is like the best way I was able to break free was to stop listening to them all and explore my own creativity, reconnect with my own mind, unlearn the conditioning that had been conditioned over the years throughout years of music that I had been listening to,
Mm-hmm.
and just expand it from there. Because that's the best way I could explain that, is mental freedom is creating freely regardless of what anyone says, and just just have fun with it too. That's the other thing, is like, don't let all these other artists, like, say if you're an independent artist getting into the field,
Mm-hmm.
don't follow what everyone else is doing. Create and forge your own path. Be your own artist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't follow their lane, their niche. Create your own realm. That's what I call it. Me, I didn't want to stay in a lane. I didn't want to stay anywhere on this plane. I wanted to create my own realm of music, my own dimension of music. And so that's what I would consider mental freedom in music.
In what ways do you see music intersecting with prescription drug cultures or societal conformities?
Well, as we was talking about earlier, how target marketing,
Mm-hmm.
an artist. So I'm like a lot of artists, professional artists that have investments in stocks. This is where it gets a little tricky or deep, I guess you could say. Is so when they have investments in certain stocks and they're making money from these stocks, and they start rapping about the things that are incorporated into these stocks, it's going to push the audience, especially if they're more susceptible mentally, to get these things. They're going to go to the doctor to get these, prescription medications that they think are going to help, when deep down they just need to, I mean, I don't want to tell people what they need to do, but when they can regain control of their mind and free it, they won't need these things, and they can use whatever they are going through in some form of creativity, instead of relying on prescription medication, which is what I do, is like, whatever's on my mind, I will write.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, like, expand and grow in whatever way I can creatively. And yeah, it's just there's a whole, it's like I mentioned before, it's one big cycle. Because if an artist is constantly rapping about those things and they have investment in those things, they're going to make money from those things for the people that they send to those things.
Mm-hmm. As an artist, how do you balance making music that's catchy and engaging with embedding deeper social and cultural messages?
Well, it's so with it, how I mentioned that, I didn't want to write anything negative anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a more positive outlook. However, I also enjoy shedding light on the darker aspects of the things, which at the same time, the beats that I create, they end up being like catchy and dark, and the things that I come up with,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's where I find the balance. Because regardless of the if the beat is like catchy or dark, that's basically like the dark shadow aspect, is like if I create, something dark and catchy, and then turn the lyrics into more open-minded, fun, and creative, in whatever way I can find. And from there, that's where I consider it a nice little balancing act.
Right.
Because, like, there's a lot of balancing for sure.
Do you feel like you have the responsibility to educate or awaken your listeners, or is it more about letting them interpret the message themselves?
So no, it's not my responsibility. It's what I choose to do. And if they choose to dive deeper into it, I'm always open to explaining my lyrics to people, especially if, like, it really has them stumped, or if they, want to know more. I, I'm always down to further explain it. And that's the important part too, is like, you have to be open. Like with my music, I know for a fact it won't be for everybody. A lot of times it can trigger people, or some will be like, well, who do you think you are talking like that? Like talking with that subject matter, like, because I said I don't follow one niche. I didn't want to rap about like shooting and like doing all the drugs, and then like just all the stuff about women, and like it isn't who I am. And so I wanted to do something different, and that's what led to where I'm at now and what I do now. And like I said, I'm not here. I don't want to teach. It's not my duty to teach. If they want to listen, by all means, there's a lot of hidden knowledge in what I write, and a lot of ways that they can go down a better path through what I write. It's just that's what I wanted to create, was something completely different than what others have, that I grew up listening to. And I grew up listening to like a lot of the mainstream artists, even, some gangster rap and stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. That was what I wanted to do different.
Tell me about some of the artists that you listened to growing up. Like, what influenced you? What I'm saying, as far as like, yeah, tell me some of who you listened to growing up.
Well, growing up, so before, how I mentioned, like originally was rock music, some screamo bands, or punk rock and stuff like that, which those songs, they still have a lot of like really good, fun, catchy songs that I like to go back to for nostalgic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's some also that, like, if I do go back and listen to them, that's where I have to keep the mental fortitude and be like, okay, well, this isn't who I am anymore. I understand these lyrics now and stuff like that. Now, when it comes to rap, so the first rapper was Eminem, and then Lil Wayne. Whenever him and Lil Wayne did, I believe it was No Love and Drop the World. That's what made me fall in love with rap even more. And then after that, it led to, Tech Nine, and then Hobson, and then ICP, and then Dark Lotus. That's where stuff gets real dark.
Yeah.
And with a lot of those, a lot of those artists that they rap about a lot of things. I'll just, I'm sure you listen to more than half of them. So
I like Hobson's music. I ain't gonna lie to you.
yeah.
I mean,
I like what Hobson did with NF as well. Like NF, that's someone who I will actually go back and like listen to. He's one of my most recent, well, not most recent, but like newly emerged artists from years ago that I still will listen to this day. Now, like I said, I stopped listening to all the others and started focusing on my own stuff, and as well as like the lo-fi hip hop and whatnot, just to soothe the mind.
Now, have you faced any challenges or pushbacks for tackling these heavier topics in your music?
Yes, especially through TikTok, because I decided to go like the TikTok route instead of like trying to promote on Instagram so much. And then like I have my stuff I post on YouTube. However, I wanted to strictly focus on TikTok. Now with TikTok, it's easily accessible for everybody, including other artists and rappers. And I am all the time coming across rappers. They'll release a verse, only a verse. They won't have the full songs out yet. And I'll notice when they'll use certain subject matter that's related to mine, but in a way that is like trying to dim me down, I guess you could say, or run me through the mud.
Right.
And I'll push back. And that's what leads to some of my later, newer tracks. But me, I won't just release a verse. I'll release a whole song and and show them like, look, I won't stop. I'm going to keep going. And because the world needs something different, especially in this industry, because it's so oversaturated with, the hatred, racism, like everything. And it honestly gets under my skin sometimes.
What kind of reactions have you received from listeners regarding Cold Chill?
With Cold Chill, there was a quite a few. Like it wouldn't be backlash from the few that have given me feedback. Some would be like, like your flow is really good in that, and the things you're talking about are a little on the edge, I guess you could say. And I was like, that's what I'm looking for. Is I want people to be like, whoa, like like get them thinking about the cultural marketing,
Mm-hmm.
get them to dig deeper into it. Do their own research if they so choose, to realize and put two and two together. Like I picture someone putting up a whole whiteboard and doing the whole string thing, like, oh, this is linked to this, and this is linked to this, and this and this, and vice versa, and like that was my goal with Cold Chill, is so that way people can see, you know, with their ears though.
Have you ever had any fans tell you that your songs change how they think about the music they consume on their own mental?
Not personally, not yet. And I mean, I do get, so like here lately, I've received, like with my newer songs, not Cold Chill specifically, but newer songs, people have told me, like there's deep, deep messages in them, and but also good vibes, and in the way that I created the beat, and then the way I'm like doing the videos and stuff. Like I want it to be good vibey, but also like I said, the shadow aspect of me
Mm-hmm.
is letting these other artists know that, hey, look, I'm here still. I'm, I'm here. y'all just need to, something's got to change. Something's got to give. That's for sure.
In your opinion, what's the most concerning trend in how music or media can influence people today?
With that, basically, so how how much music what type of music and how much it's used in movies, because like that's another, that's a whole other ordeal, is how much they still, because with a movie they're putting a picture to
Mm-hmm.
what they're rapping about then, and it gives the the listener and the viewer something to like watch and hear and be like, oh, okay, oh well, that looks fun, that looks dope, like like, and it just, it's just too much. I mean, like, I'll, like, don't get me wrong. Okay, do not get me wrong. I got my own, I watch shows and I watch movies as well, just like anybody else. I have my favorite shows and stuff. However, with the music, how dark it gets, or like depressing, and just overall mind bending they can get with it, really affects a lot of people. And it's only been getting worse, especially with more stuff that comes out, and it's like something's got to shift somewhere. There has to be a shift, especially, like finding other artists who are willing to help do that is the other thing. So
In your opinion, how can artists create music that promotes awareness and liberation rather than emotion or cultural I can't even say the damn word. Conformity. Yeah, conformity. My bad. Let me re-say the question. In your opinion, how can artists create music that promotes awareness and liberation rather than emotional or cultural conformity?
basically how I've been doing it, that I'll straight up say it that way, because me, I just, I believe if once other artists realize too that a lot of the things that they may rap about, like that they may find cool and fun, is still under the mindset that they've been conditioned to believe is okay. That would be the most spot on way I could put that, is like they have to uncondition what
Mhm.
they have grew up listening to, what their friends think is cool, because even then, when they're sitting there showing it to their friends who are indulging in the same things and stuff, it only just amplifies the problem, instead of be like, oh well, like maybe we should do it this way instead, and like talk about how like this has affected me, but like make people aware of like
Mm-hmm.
the true way it affected them, not the oh well, like it had me feeling this type of way. Like it's cool though. Like the fact that you come back with it's cool though completely wipes away the message, because it's still telling listeners, oh, it's cool if you do this and do this and do this. Like it just, yeah.
Are there other musicians or creatives you respect for challenging cultural norms and raising consciousness?
So personally, I haven't. Well, actually, I don't remember his name. There was a few people that did pop up on TikTok that I've come across, and then like there's other conscious rappers out there.
Mm-hmm.
However, like I mentioned before, like I mainly focus on my music. I should go and dive deeper into other conscious rappers
Mm-hmm.
and get a better understanding of their points of view as well, because like that's another thing. We have to be super open-minded in
Mm-hmm.
terms of change, because if you're set one way, set in stone, the way you grew up and conditioned, it's just gonna it's gonna keep you on that path. But if you're open minded, you have like an array, a wide range of paths you could take. It's your choice. Where you don't change, you choose, as they say.
Are there any upcoming tracks or projects that continue to explore mental freedoms or cultural influences?
Here lately, I haven't. Well, I was gonna say like I haven't wrote anything new, although I did write something new the other day. But nothing that kind of like follows up to Cold Chill.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of my music is more so to open the mind and expand it a little more. Like my track, Don't Mind Me. There, there's a bar up here. It's like so far ahead with what I write, light years beyond what others write. The new blueprints, what you're gonna find, changing the industry line by line.
Yeah.
Like that bar is definitely, like it still tackles the industry topic that how I need it to,
Mm-hmm.
while also, like getting people thinking like the new blueprint. What you mean the new like follow your heart, follow your creative, be the creative genius you grew up to be before people told you to shut up and be quiet constantly over and over for expressing yourself. That that's because a lot of times, like growing up, once you start expressing yourself, like, and people don't want to hear it, they're gonna tell you to shut up and be quiet, and it's up to you to be like, no, 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 like this is me, y'all. If you ain't, if you're not jiving with it, there's other places you could go
Mm-hmm.
just easily. Like, if you stay in your own lane, create your own path, and then from there expand it. Like the the topics can be endless and it could be super fun. So
What's the ultimate goal with your music? Like, do you see it as activism, storytelling, healing, or a combination?
so I would say a combination, that's for sure, because a lot of my music now is talking about like I took lyricism and then storytelling to a whole new level in my opinion, and with it my healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
how like I went from negative to positive, and everything emotionally within that has changed and shown me, like we can be our own light in
Mm-hmm.
dark times, and we can shine in our own way and through the most like troublesome times,
Mm-hmm.
just basically be our own, be our own creator to our own creations.
I respect that. How do you want the listeners to feel or think, after engaging with your work?
I I want them to think, like straight up, because a lot of times, like I mean, okay, so I do want people. I would. I want them to enjoy the music as well as also, get them to think about a lot, because a lot of times the music now is just, like I said, just oversaturated with the negativity, the hate, the racism, the pill pop and the drinking, the talking down on women, talking about hitting women and stuff like that is just it's just too much anymore in a world that has been slowly declining.
And I'm glad you said that because I want, you know what I'm saying, people from my community to understand what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's time for something different. You know what I mean? Like, outside, you know what I'm saying, that ain't cool. You know what I mean? The drill music, the disrespecting of our, you know what I mean? That genocide music is what I call it.
Yeah, and then and like as we talked, that one day how like we do got to do better by our children, like that was the other thing that really inspired me to change was my son, because I wanted him to be able to grow up and listen to my music, to understand that, like, if he eventually later down the road is going through something,
Hmm.
he has a way he can express it in a healthy way at that, and still keep his creativity, his love, his imagination alive.
Hmm.
And with a lot of, like, if you're sitting there bumping all this negative stuff constantly, and your kids, that's they're sponges. They are gonna absorb every bit of it. And like how I mentioned before, like working at the Salvation Army and like hearing what some of them kids are listening to, I was like, they're just absorbing it over and over and over. And then like it's like I saw, yeah, your interview. I don't remember their names, but about the two that decided they need to stop, like with the war roughly.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oklahoma
yeah,
City. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And so like that, that's a good start right there. Now from there, like I said, it's all with what we, because if we're listening to the stuff around our kids, like I said, they're a sponge. And if you're constantly listening to like gang banging and just so much, as you put it, genocide music,
yeah.
they're going to grow up thinking it's okay. And they're going to grow up, like talking to their other like classmates about like certain things and stuff. That's the other thing is like, what are they going to talk about to their kid friends when we're not around, when we can't be there to be like, hey, yo, that's not right to talk about. That's not right to treat people that way, like, be kind and stuff like that. Like it's another cycle that needs to break.
It goes back to when you said you worked at the around with the youth, you know what I mean, and you would
Mhm.
hear them playing, you know what I mean, that music, and
Yeah,
it's psychologic, you know what I mean, the psychosis that it does.
yeah,
When you repeat those vibrations over and over, they become your reality.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so I completely understand what you're saying.
And with that, like how I mentioned too, is like a lot of people want to grow up to be their peers or
Hmm.
their idols, and they'll think, okay, well, if I do this and this and this, I could be just like them. Well, you don't know the side effect of this and this until it's too late. And so like that's also like that goes back to the question, like me during my mental health is, like me, I grew up thinking, like, when I was writing and stuff and writing all the negative stuff, like wanting to be like my idols. It's
Hmm.
like, okay, well, like maybe if I indulge in this, I could write this way and write this way and be, oh, this is sick, like. And then I go back and read the stuff now and I'm like, whoa, bro, like I'm grateful that, I don't write that way no more,
Yeah.
because I've got some dark negative stuff that I should probably burn. I'll put it that way.
All right. So before we wrap this thing up, I got two more questions I want to
All
ask.
right.
What message would you want to leave for the young people growing up in today's music and media culture?
Be mindful of what you're listening to, first off, and know that you don't have to follow the footsteps of your idols. Do your own thing, be your own mind, be your own person, create in your own way, express yourself creatively, whether it be writing, drawing, painting, just crocheting.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole other, like a whole variety of things you could do creatively to channel and transmute and work through anything, versus trying to be like your idols. Do not be like your idols. Or don't, that's probably the best thing I could say is like, I wouldn't want anybody like really to, I mean, I want people to open their mind in writing how I do, but I don't want them to be like me. I'm my own person. They're their own person. We're all our own beings, and we're here to express and create and share and stuff like that. So just be mindful of what you're listening to and show kindness. That's the other thing, is like too many people are so hateful towards each other, even in this, like just small sly comments and stuff. Like some of that can really hurt someone and really mess up their whole day, even the smallest little comments. And so, because you never know what people are going through, like at home, and that just, yeah,
Now, facts, because depression is real, suicide is real.
yeah.
Saying mass shootings are real.
Mhm.
So don't strike me for saying them three words, but these are real topics that, come with mental issues
Yeah.
that people don't discuss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and with the mental issues, that's the other thing. Like creativity is the best way to get through it, instead of like constantly like I understand that people will believe that they do have to go to a doctor to get things, but I'm telling you that there are healthier ways of getting through what you're going through. Creatively is the best way. We everybody can create. Just have to sit down and do it, one way or another, whatever you want to do. What did you like doing as a kid? Do
Mhm.
that. That's
All
a
right.
good start.
My last question for you, brother. And I want to say I thank you. You know what I mean, for giving me your story, your time on this platform. You have literally dropped a lot of jewels, whether you know it or not. You know what I mean, you got a lot of information on. But where can listeners, find your music and follow your journey?
All right, so basically, I'm on all streaming platforms. Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, YouTube, Deezer, Pandora, YouTube Music. Like I'm on all the streaming platforms. And if you really want to follow my journey, go to my TikTok. My TikTok, like, I mean, I'll post like regular everyday stuff. A lot of times I post, like, good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today. Has a great start to their day, and I'll go and like promote my link tree occasionally, or like uh, some other thing I like to do is, because TikTok, the sounds on TikTok, I can use those and make my own little videos with it. So sometimes I'll do like certain videos, like even at lunch at work, I'll sit there and like load up one of my songs, listen to it for a second to like get the beat of it, and then just be eating, nodding my head to the beat, like just simple stuff like that. But I also do, like, of course, all sorts of other artist stuff. If you go further down on my TikTok too, I also have like music production stuff, like showing how I produce beats and whatnot, and like to give tutorials in Pro Tools, and like I do all sorts of different things. But TikTok's the place for those, and YouTube also. I've been recently posting them on YouTube, so